Are you ready to get into it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So the first question that we have for you today is just plain and simple to us, but may not be for you. How'd you get interested in traditional music?
When I was a kid, like a young teenager, um, I I heard I think I first heard like Mississippi John Hurt and Woody Guthrie, and then
Nice.
I heard the Anthology of American Folk Music, and got into the New Lost City Ramblers, and then other string bands through the anthology, and then through the Ramblers and their liner notes, and other sources. And I was just um, you know finding out about music back then. I played the guitar and the harmonica, and then in high school I started to play the banjo as well. I got a family friend gave me a banjo, and I didn't know how to play it. He knew how to play a little bit, and he showed me a bit. Um, but I don't know. This was back in the mid 1990s. I grew up in downtown Manhattan, in Greenwich Village, and farther downtown there. And I really didn't know. This was pre-internet essentially, and I didn't know, and my parents didn't really know anybody that played old time music. But really I got really into it, and I was trying to kind of learn on my own. Certainly at first and for the first few years, but yeah, I by chance in some ways I encountered some really good American folk music, traditional music, and it spoke to me, and I remember feeling so strongly that this was it, that this was what I had been looking for, and I've been pursuing it and learning more ever since.
That's so awesome. Yeah, it's always cool to like get involved and experience something that like feels really fulfilling that you never like something that you didn't grow up with, but that all of a sudden is like, oh, this is the thing I've been looking for. I feel like
Yeah,
that might ring true.
absolutely.
I forgot to thank our
Yeah.
wonderful sleuths who help us come up with questions at the beginning of this, so I just want everybody to know, Dom, thanks for the reminder, that if you hear a question that you like, there's a whole team of people behind the scenes who are coming up with these questions that we share together. So if you hear something you like, don't just think like me or Dom or the people who are usually on the show. Think the whole team of sleuths because they're awesome, and I always say that they're intrepid and beautiful and wonderful and intelligent and passionate and all of these other things. The list goes on. So if you hear something you like, thank them. But our next question for you, you kind of talked about this a little bit already when we were talking about the game. But what is the Jalopy Theater and School of Music, and what is your role there specifically, or like how do you define your role in this theater?
Yeah, thank you for asking. The Jalopy Theater and School of Music is the home for folk and traditional music here in New York City at this moment in history, I think. The sort of folk music movement, if you want to call it that, has been going on in New York City in its modern incarnation since the 1930s. There's been many venues and cultural workers, that have done great work and been involved in that over the course of those decades. And Jalopy Theater is in that tradition, and is occupying that space now. And yes, as I mentioned, the Jalopy Theater it's a venue, a music school, a traditional music school. We also have our own tavern, our own bar and restaurant, and we produce off-site music festivals. The largest of which is the Brooklyn Folk Festival. Um, I've been working at Jalopy since for a long time, since 2007. We opened in 2006, and I've taught banjo and guitar lessons here over the years, and I currently am I work at Jalopy, and what I do is I produce the Brooklyn Folk Festival each year, as well as the Washington Square Park Folk Festival, which is a free outdoor festival in Washington Square Park in Manhattan. And then I also run Jalopy's record label, Jalopy Records. And we have, I think, about 35 albums out now, and more on the way, great stuff on the way. So we're always coming out with more new and old music. And I think really what we really do is it's presented as entertainment sort of, but it's also, there's a strong educational element. And what we do is, I think we kind of bring together entertainment and education in everything that we do. I mean, clearly in the school, but in everything that we do.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned the Jalopy Records, because there was a section on your website for Jalopy Records that reads that we're not part of the music industry. Would you expand a little bit more on what that philosophy means to you, not being part of the music industry as a record label?
I probably wrote that, but now I can't remember why. Oh well, the Jalopy Records it's all about the music.
Right.
It's not about money, as far as possible, and it's not about celebrity culture or things that are involved with that. So we're as much as possible, I am and we are trying to stay out of that. We don't want to compete on their terms, and we're here to present something that's a different vision. So that's why I said that.
Yeah. And that definitely like rings true reading through the site. This kind of like grassroots kind of philosophy, or like producing music to just get any kind of music produced in a like more tangible form to share with people, as opposed to like making money, which is kind of cool. Yeah. How do
and
you?
we are. I mean, we are a nonprofit also.
Yeah.
So that's a way that we try to make this work.
Another thing that we were also curious about was how you find the people that you work with.
Yeah,
Like,
good question.
like, do they come to you, or do you go find people? Like, what does that relationship look like?
You mean artists that are on Jalopy Records?
Yes.
Yes, both. A number of the artists that are on Jalopy Records are part of our music community here in Brooklyn, around the Jalopy Theater. They're people that I've known and worked with for years in many cases. But also people come to us from wherever they might be. People send us music, or get in touch in whatever way. And yeah, that's how we find people. Yeah, it's most of our artists are here in New York, but we've also done albums with people from around the country, from California, from Arkansas, like the Ozark Highballers. We did a wonderful string band album with them a few years ago, and more. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
We've worked hard on it.
Yeah, I think that shows a lot. I think that that is apparent, I guess is what I want to say, from the Jalopy Records like label, and just like looking through the site and listening to tunes. It's clear that you put a lot of passion and care behind the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah. We have I've got some chat questions here.
Yeah.
Dom, I don't know how to read this in New Guy Neighbor's voice, but I will ask the question. Who's your favorite culture worker to work in New York City?
Say that again?
I might need more explanation on that, Dom. Who is your favorite culture worker to work in New York City?
For me to work with someone else?
I'm gonna say yes. Yeah, can you reword your question, Dom? I have another question too. Dom's stepdad wants to know how you came up with the name Jalopy Records.
Yeah. Well, I mean, why did we call it the Jalopy Theater?
Yes, Jalopy Theater.
Yeah, I mean it's called Jalopy Records because it's
of the
the
theater.
record label of the Jalopy Theater. But well, I think Jeff Wiley, my friend, who is the co-owner of Jalopy along with Lynette, he had a previous business also called Jalopy in a previous era of his life. It may be that he was restoring old cars.
That would be cool. Yeah, because I was thinking it's like a classic car, the Jalopy. Yeah.
Does everybody know what a jalopy? Yeah, a jalopy is like a kind of a junk old car that's like maybe made from spare parts, and but like still works somehow. And that's very much us. You know, everything is just about to fall apart. Everything is sort of fucked. You know.
I love that metaphor.
But it still works, and it's homemade, and it's old, and it's made from things that are reused, and but it still runs. And actually, the origin of the word jalopy, this may be the origin. There's a city or a large town, small city in Mexico called Jalapa.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's in central Mexico, kind of on the east side of the country. And they had a kind of a cottage industry like 100 years ago, buying, getting old junked cars and using the scrap, like the spare parts from the cars, to build working cars. And the cars that came out of Jalapa were jalopies.
Interesting.
And that's the origin of the term jalopy, as far as I know.
Huh. That's so cool.
So
I hope that answers your...
it goes back to Jalapa, Mexico.
Yeah,
so
Jalapa, Mexico.
We can thank them for the term jalopy, and therefore Jalopy Theater, Jalopy Records. Yeah. We're all jalapenos here.
Dom's stepdad, I hope that answers your question. Dom rephrased that other question to be a little bit more nuanced. I think this is a good question. Of all the folk artists and culture workers to work in the New York City folk music scene since the 30s, who is your favorite? Wow. Who's your favorite, and who do you think is the most impactful?
Ooh, yeah, I love this question.
Yeah, I mean, that's like a big.
It's a big question. Yeah, maybe like who's coming to your mind right now. We won't. This isn't like the only answer. Like in this moment, who's coming to your mind?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the person that I had the most time with and the longest relationship with was John Cohen, who I played in a band with for 11 years, and we made a number of albums together, and I learned so much from him. John was just a really amazing cultural worker, as a photographer and filmmaker, but also as a musician himself in the New Lost City Ramblers and the work that he did as a musician, and also in his work as a field recordist, making field recordings, audio field recordings, as well as the films that he made, and producing albums based on those field recordings, and also organizing concerts like the extraordinarily, looking back on it, influential Friends of Old Time Music concerts that happened in the early to mid 1960s, and brought all kinds of amazing artists like Mississippi John Hurd and Fred McDowell and Roscoe Holcomb, Clarence Ashley, Georgia Sea Island singers, Joseph Spence, and many more, to New York at that time. And also he brought people to the University of Chicago Folk Festival, and more, and Newport Folk Festival and stuff way back then. So John Cohen has meant a lot to me, and his work has been an inspiration. I try to do what he did. But then the group of people that were his friends that he was working with back in the early 60s was an extraordinary group. that included John Cohen, but also Ralph Rinzler. Can't forget Ralph Rinzler, even though he's, he passed away a number of years ago. Mm-hmm. Can't forget, that whole group that included Izzy Young and Gene Ritchie and others that were making the folk music movement happen in the 1950s and into the 1960s. The people that were working in the 1930s and the 40s was an amazing generation. We can't ever forget Alan Lomax, and also Pete Seeger, and Leadbelly.
Leadbelly,
who really had a big impact on people in New York City he moved to New York in 1935, I think, and he lived in the East Village. And Pete Seeger got back to New York in 1939, and Woody Guthrie moved here in 1940. And then there was a lot of people don't remember, a lot of people don't remember Margot Mayo. Have you ever heard of Margot Mayo?
I haven't. Lindsay, have you?
I have, yeah.
You have, okay.
Yeah. Lindsay's more into this scene than I am, so that makes sense. Yeah.
I mentioned her in my thesis a little bit.
Cool.
Oh, right on. Great. For listeners that may not know, Margot Mayo was she had a group called the American Square Dance Group here in New York. She was from Texas, as far as I understand. But she had this square dance group in New York City in the 1930s and on into the 40s and on. That really turned a lot of people on to, old time music as far as old time music goes here. And she was just an important cultural worker in New York in the 1930s and 40s, and made important field recordings also, including of Rufus Crisp, a Kentucky banjo player, whose music was wonderful and became important for people interested in old-time banjo playing outside of his home community. So those are some of the cultural workers that are important to me.
That's
I would also
awesome.
I'd like to mention Henrietta Yorchenko, who was a really, really cool ethnomusicologist and field recordist that I got to work with at the end of her life. I met her when she was in her late 80s. And we got to work together for several years. I was sort of her assistant, and we started a podcast together. She had actually, arguably, but seemingly, the first sort of, folk music radio show in New York City. Back in 1939 on WNYC, she had gotten a radio show that presented what she thought of as folk music from different parts of the world at that time. And she was also a producer at WNYC and was the producer for Leadbelly's show. Leadbelly had his own radio show at that time. And then she ended up going to Mexico and doing some really amazing and important field recording work all over Mexico, recording indigenous music in Mexico in the 1940s and on. And she became a professor at City College here. But she was really a wonderful person and did some really awesome work. Everybody should look up Henrietta Yorchenko.
Yeah, I'll let you know too that not only is the chat absolutely more than satisfied with that amazing answer, but is posting links to lots of the names of people that you've mentioned, to their Wikipedia pages, just to other information, as well as to folk streams, which if you don't know, you can watch free folklore films, and there's a ton of them on there from John Cohen, amongst others, of these kinds of scholars, filmmakers, etc. So please indulge in the links people are posting are all good links. So thank you, everybody. Thanks to Chad and me for keeping up on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Right on. Yeah. Folkstreams.net is an incredible resource.
Mm-hmm.
There was a time when I had seen almost every movie on there, but I think they've put up a lot more since I was really, really keeping up with that.
Yeah, it's a pretty incredible resource.
Yeah.
We are.
I highly recommend The End of an Old Song.
Yes.
That John Cohen did, because I love Dillard Chandler. But anyway, yeah, Folk Streams is great.
Yeah. And
Dillard Chandler's wonderful.
Yeah, folks, if you have questions in the chat, we are collecting them for the end of the interview as well. So if you have other specific questions that we haven't gotten to yet, we will get to them at some point. They're being collected. So yeah, just feel free to keep posting stuff that you like. I've got another question for you, Eli. This maybe is a little bit more of like a thinker, but something that like you and folklorists have in common is this kind of interest in tradition. And I'm curious about what makes music traditional to you.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, everything is traditional in some way. You know, it's just a matter of what tradition you're interested in. Maybe that's the same with the word authentic. You know, everything is authentic to itself in some way. It's just a matter of what that is.
Yeah.
But when I think of traditional music, I think of something that is hopefully part of a community, like a pretty small scale, grassroots, human scale community, and something that's old and connected to history. And that you can feel that, you know, or you can feel a sense of history in it. And that's something that seems really kind of connected to real life.
Yeah.
In a way that's right there in front of you. That's not alienated. I'm just thinking out loud here.
Yeah, no.
But oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, but continue. It's all you. I have a point that I can add to it for some behind the curtain stuff. But if you have more, please.
Oh no, and also it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about doing something that's connected to one's community, and is like down home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that represents something that's a different narrative than the consumer culture. Is to have something that's our own, that's not connected to like $1 billion industry, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that we were noticing kind of like that's cool about your work that you've done and these kinds of projects that you've had a piece in is that this like tradition is both something, it's like people assume that it's always in the past, right? And like that's the cool thing about it is that it's historical, but the work that you've been able to highlight along with the Jalopy Theater and your records and all of the other groups that you're part of, this video game for example, is like bringing that, like saying, hey, there's no like linearity to tradition. It's like can be part of now and also can inform how we interact with the future, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like
awesome.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's this cool like element of, yes, a lot of this is historical and a lot of it is us like engaging with it in the present and keeping it active, but there's also like how can we imagine our futures through the historical content, which I think breaks a lot of definitions of tradition. And it's just like a cool thing that you seem, a lot of the projects that you seem to work around kind of connect to.
I'm not interested in preservation for its own sake.
Yeah.
I'm interested in perpetuation, promotion, like giving honor and respect, to musicians and tradition bearers. But I'm not interested in like just preserving old stuff for its own sake. There's a lot of old stuff that's bad.
Yeah, definitely.
Also,
Yeah.
And also, I feel like what I do or something, or it gets dismissed as being like just being like clinging to something that's old for some sick reason. But I'm not about that. No, I want to see things that are here and now and are meaningful for people now.
Yeah. Well, keeping that in mind, I have another serious question for you, and then I have a couple fun questions for you. In your past role as a traditional music consultant for Red Dead Redemption 2, how did you go about talking to game developers at Rockstar about traditional music?
I know.
Like, what are those conversations like?
Well, occasionally I interact with corporate stuff, and that was one such case. Like Rockstar, I didn't, to be honest with you, I didn't know a lot about the video game industry or anything like that. Rockstar Games is a large video game company. They're best known for Grand Theft Auto, which I had played like once at some point.
Yeah.
And was really fun and crazy.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot in the course of working on this game, Red Dead Redemption 2. The way that happened was that, maybe your viewers, listeners already know this. I didn't. Video games have a director, like a movie, and actors and stuff.
Yeah. And
I began teaching banjo lessons to this guy. He named Rod Edge. His name is Rod Edge, and he's a good banjo player. He's a British guy. And I used to go to his house like every week and teach him a lesson. We always had a lot of fun. And he's a video game director, and he directed Red Dead Redemption 2. And so he was a good banjo player who was knowledgeable about old-time banjo music. He's a big Hobart Smith fan, Roscoe Holcomb fan. Others.
Nice.
And so he began working on this game, which they worked on for years, like 7 years or so. I worked on it for 2.5 years. It was a huge project.
It's a huge game.
And it is, yeah. It's really substantial video game. And so he asked me to come work on it and play banjo. They were actually, either through Rod Edge's, direction or just in general, I was impressed. They were interested in having good, accurate music for the time period in which the game is set, which is it's set in the 1890s, out west, south, in the sort of southeast and southwest. So they had me first playing banjo in the game, and then it kind of snowballed where I was playing other instruments like guitar and mandolin and like whistling and playing Jew's harp and stuff.
Yeah.
And then it ended up like, producing, like, getting other musicians involved. Walker Shepard played fiddle in the game. Ernie Vega played the harmonica. Terry Waldo played piano, and others. Wonderful musicians. We got some great people. And so we made some, I think really good music for this video game that's in the world of the game. It's not the soundtrack to the game. It's the music that appears in this video game reality when you're like riding your horse and going to these old time towns and stuff. And there's, you'll see somebody sitting on their porch playing the fiddle, or sitting on the steps of the courthouse in the little town playing the banjo, or sitting around a campfire singing cowboy songs. We had a lot of fun with it, and we put a lot of work into it, and I thought it came out nice.
You might not know, or the chat might not know, but Red Dead 2 is one of my favorite games. I really
cool.
like that game a lot. Yeah, it's really fun. You mentioned Grand Theft Auto, and the mechanics are like Grand Theft Auto with horses. So instead of driving the car, you can drive your horse like this. It's like all the same mechanics.
Grand Theft Horse.
Yeah, yeah, it's Grand Theft Horse basically. There's a lot of thievery in that game too, so it's very fitting. Yeah, no, that game is awesome.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like the equivalent of a Western movie. It's a Western game.
Yeah, I mean, and not to get too off tangent, but like thinking about tradition and the game kind of centering on this idea of the death of the West and like having traditional music kind of move into new spaces and become new things. Like, I don't know. I think it's fascinating and it's cool that you got a chance to work on it and like inform like game developers who don't necessarily know like anything about traditional music or a little bit about traditional music, especially like in that time period, because people might like know traditional music but they don't necessarily know what was happening in the 1890s, or I don't know. I'm like, what was that like?
Yeah, and I mean, I was able to like say, you know, when they wanted something that was an anachronism that wasn't accurate to the time and place.
Yeah.
I would let them know, and they were interested in that information and wanted things to be, you know, at least, you know, insofar as possible to be, you know, authentic.
Yeah. My follow-up to that is, how are those kinds of conversations that you had with the other game developers different than those that you have with other traditional music archivists? Like,
wait, what do you mean?
Like, what are the differences in their orientation or their like thinking about the traditional music that they want to have represented in the final outcome of whatever their project is? So an archivist might say like, we are interested in conversations around music preservation and like what does the question about authenticity look like? Like, is there a correlation? Yeah. Like, are they asking the same kinds of questions, the game developers in this particular game, or like as a traditional music consultant? And how is that different from the conversations that you're having with archivists about the preservation of traditional music?
Yeah, that's a good question. They're not very comparable, really. I mean, the producers at Rockstar Games gave me a lot of leeway in terms of what I wanted to bring in, and they just wanted you know, good music that was appropriate to the time and the setting. So it wasn't much deeper than that. But yeah, I mean, there wasn't like any discussion about what would be should be preserved or anything like that. But it's interesting because in the game, I think I and we, all of the musicians that took part, we reached a large young audience, like millions of people that have played this game. I mean, the game is, you know, sold like tens of millions of copies.
It's a huge game. Yeah.
So it's probably the most people that when I think about it, it's probably the most people that I'll ever reach, you know, with the music that I'm trying to put out there. But it reached them in like a weird way that they might not even pay attention to. But there it is, you know, and there's other video games that have traditional music. I noticed that there's maybe it's called like Assassin's Creed or something.
Yeah, Assassin's Creed.
Like that had like a lot of sea shanties in it. Does anybody know about that? And they were like, you know, real sea shanties that are like pretty good.
yeah, that game has a bunch. We've had like people, other like ethnomusicologists or people who are interested in particular genres of music on the show to talk about different music in video games. So we had somebody on to talk about The Witcher, music in the Witcher 3 games, which is like a kind of it's like a reimagined like Eastern European kind of Polish music, and like that was interesting. And then we had another person on to talk about some Star Wars video game music, which is relationship to Mongolian music and throat singing, which is kind of cool. Whoa. Yeah, so you're like right up in there talking. You're speaking the language of the audience. Yes.
Well, that's interesting to hear because I only know about what I've worked on myself. but it seems like traditional music or whatever it is
Yeah.
entering the world of video games, and the world of video games is like becoming the scope of it is getting much bigger than it was when I was a teenager.
Definitely. Yeah.
There's a huge, insane amount of money in video games, and they're making a lot of them, and there are these big productions with big budgets, and
Yeah.
it's interesting that to see old music, traditional music, folk music, whatever it is, enter this world of video games in a similar way that it has been in the world of movies for decades, and every once in a while there's like a big movie that features traditional music in some way, and then it like, the world of popular culture, the mass audience gets a taste.
Yeah. Yeah. Dom mentions that it's Assassin's Creed Black Flag is the one with the sea shanties. And then Civ 6, Civilization 6. There's a banjo in that too. Some other stuff. It's pretty cool.
Brad Kolodner.
Yeah. Brad Kolodner. Yeah. He's on banjo
nice.
in that. Yeah.
Right on.
That's pretty cool. Are you ready for some funsy questions? I've got some kind of fast-paced, rapid-fire fun questions.
Yeah, hit me
Okay.
with those.
All right, so we already asked you about the origin of the name Jalopy Records, but how did you all come up with the band name Downhill Strugglers?
Well, we just thought it was funny. As you know, there's a tradition of funny band names and self-effacing band names in old-time string band music. And we liked the old string band, the Mobile Strugglers.
Yeah.
And we were, there's nothing to it. We were just sitting around trying to think of band names, and we agreed that we liked Strugglers, and I think Walker said, Downhill Strugglers.
What about your radio show, Down Home Radio Show? You mentioned Down Home earlier as a concept, and I was like, this is interesting. This must be like an echoing of something.
Yeah, I like the term down home music.
Yeah.
Because there's different terms out there like roots music, folk music, vernacular music. They're all good and are useful in their own way. I like the term down home music. And I lived in California in the Bay Area for a little while, and I worked for our Hooli Records. And they have their own record store on the first floor of their building that they have there north of Berkeley, and that record store is called Down Home Music, and I was a clerk there for a year.
Got it.
And that was a wonderful experience working at Down Home Music. I learned a lot, and I'm thankful to them. And that's where that term got imprinted in my brain, down home music. I thank our Hooli Records and the Down Home Music record store, and that's where the idea for the title Down Home Radio, my podcast that I started in 2006 with Henrietta Yorchenko. We had that podcast together.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, it was the first folk music or roots music podcast on the internet.
That's so cool. Yeah, people, look it up. Lindsay's posting the link to all of the stuff in the chat, so please feel free after the show, check it out. The links are here until the show
there's
goes
still
off.
A bunch of episodes available of Down Home Radio. There's actually a lot more that are need to be reposted and stuff. Sometime when I have time, I'd like to get back to Down Home Radio and make it more usable again. But there are some episodes that you can still listen to.
Nice. Okay. Gun to your head, this or that, clawhammer or Scruggs style?
Clawhammer.
Clawhammer? Tell us why.
Scruggs style and three-finger style banjo is wonderful, but clawhammer is close to my heart. That's the kind of banjo music that I love the best.
Awesome.
As you should.
Lindsay, is that what you would have chosen too?
Oh yeah, that's the only correct answer to that question.
The only correct answer is clawhammer. All right, good to know. If you were going to create a DLC for Banjo Toss, like some extra downloadable content that you could add to the game, what would you create? Pitch it to us.
What? Like, so what do you mean? What is that?
So there's, in a lot of video games, there are elements that are like bonus, either bonus storylines or like additional content that you can download separately to modify your game. Things like, something that could come to mind is like, I don't know, maybe you could like choose the color of the banjo or something, or like do different locations or something. What would you?
Yeah, for sure.
What would you want to add?
Locations.
Different locations.
Yeah, you could teleport to different spots like in the world, like just fantastic, beautiful, glorious, world locations.
Yes.
World locations you could throw a banjo into.
Just like throw the banjo there,
That would be awesome.
Watt or whatever.
That would be really cool. Maybe there's a way, you're talking about things you could add, maybe there's a way you could like, if the banjo hits a certain spot of the building, it like changes scene or something.
Yeah, that would be cool.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. It would also, what sky's the limit? It could be like an open world,
Yeah.
game where you just go to like run around like Brooklyn tossing the banjo.
Dom says Sydney Opera House DLC when Victoria Falls.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. Yeah, throw it up a waterfall. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that sounds beautiful. This be so like, the sun is setting, there's like a triple rainbow. Be awesome.
Yeah. All right, I have another question for you, and then I have like a fun game for us to play. Is there anything lined up that you're commissioning for in the future, video game wise, pop culture wise, or just general Jalopy theater and records wise?
Oh man, well, I'm always commissioning artwork for Brooklyn Folk Festival posters and for record covers for the albums on the label. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We'll have some good stuff. We'll have a really cool poster coming out this year for sure.
All right, I am sharing something with the chat really quick for our future game. And I'm bringing this back up. That is awesome. We have one chat question. Lindsay, do you happen to either have our doc up, or did you see that chat question? Do you want to ask it, or do you want me to ask it?
Where was it?
E Robinson 666 asked this question. It's a pretty good one.
Scrolling. She says, putting on any kind of large event can be so challenging in so many ways. Any standout memories of challenges overcome while planning or executing the Brooklyn Folk Fest?
Wow. Yeah, thank you. That's a good question. Well, first I would say that everybody should look out for the Brooklyn Folk Festival. It's coming up in the fall. It's going to be October 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. We're going to have about 40 different bands and workshops and jam sessions and film screenings, and of course the Banjo Toss contest. So people should please come to the Brooklyn Folk Festival if you can. It'll also be live streamed, so you can tune in from wherever you might be, and go to the website and stuff, brooklynfolkfest.com, and you can find out more information about that. We have 2 live albums out of recordings from the Brooklyn Folk Festival. You can listen to those. And this will be our 13th year of the Brooklyn Folk Festival. I remember, to answer your question, in 2012, we had a crazy year. Like, we were going to have the festival where we had been having it, at this old 19th century shipping warehouse right on the water in Red Hook in Brooklyn. And then right at the last minute, like a month or 6 weeks before the festival, the person that is in charge of that property, for whatever reason, canceled on us. He bailed out. I think he said that he had smelled people smoking weed or something at the festival the previous year, or he had some excuse. And he canceled on us, and we had no venue. And so I was able to get in touch with a friend of mine who helped us secure a abandoned or vacant retail space in downtown Brooklyn. It was a 30,000 square foot vacant former hardware store called Sid's Hardware, right in downtown Brooklyn. It was actually a kind of a famous old store that had been vacant for a few years. And it was a terrible place. Fluorescent lights, linoleum floor, really like not a nice place.
Yeah.
But it was kind of our only option, and we just went for it. And we built out the festival in this giant retail space. We built a stage. We put up all these drops, like backdrops that we got donated by a theatrical set, company.
Mm-hmm.
And we made this sort of like magical carnival atmosphere in this weird place. And we had the festival, and it was a success. That was the year that Alice Gerrard came. That was a highlight of that year. And we had like carnival games like in the front. And then we actually had Pat Conti was there from the Secret Museum. And we had him and the Canebrake Rattlers, if people remember his string band as well. And he was sitting in the basement dressed in like a freaky like wizard outfit, and he would like tell people's fortunes and freak people out down there.
Oh my gosh.
It was really funny. It was cool. It was an insane amount of work, like what it took to build that space out and get a PA and lights in there and make it look cool. It was crazy. It was like, I can't believe we did that now. But that was like a challenging year for sure. It was 2012, thinking back on it.
Wow. Yeah, it must be cool to see like how far you've come in terms of like planning and the challenges that you faced, and then like get to see like the challenges that you had and how you still made it through and how you've continued to produce the Brooklyn Folk Fest. Like that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, we're a scrappy festival. We never had money.
Yeah.
And the music journalism, situation is not in our favor.
Mm-hmm.
We never got much press because we don't really book famous musicians, and if you don't have like a big name, you can't really get press.
Yeah.
So we always were, and that's how we wanted it, and that's how it's pretty much remained. As very much a grassroots festival. We have our people. We always get a good crowd out for our venue and for our size and what we're kind of going for. So it's remained kind of an intimate, down home kind of festival, and I think that's been to our benefit. Like I don't think we really want it to grow or to grow too much.
Mm-hmm. E. Robinson 666, who asked the question, said, "Wow, that's a great answer. Hard conditions sometimes yield magic results."
Thank you. Yes, It was a magic. It was a magic year.
Yeah. Very cool. Eli, I have a game I'd like to play with you. Have you ever made a tier list?
What's that?
Perfect. If you haven't done so already, click watch stream on Discord and you'll be able to see something that I've shared with you. Let me know if you can't see
I'm supposed to click watch stream here?
Yes. Just like we did for Banjo Toss.
Okay, I see it. Eli Smith's top banjo moments in film tier list maker.
Yes.
Yes.
So on this show, we like to play a game with the guest after we do the more formal interview. Very low key.
Wow.
And usually we make a tier list together. And a tier list is something that comes from fighting games on the internet to kind of rank like characters in video games based on their value, personal care for whatever. Lots of different categories. We like to use it, and the internet likes to use it more on Twitch to rank just things in everyday life. And so we make a tier list tailored to our guest, or we try our best to make it tailored to our guest. And this time we have chosen iconic moments with banjos from major films for you to rank.
God, okay.
You can rank them on a scale from S, which is like superior, super, the best, above A, hands down, like
Wow.
favorite thing ever, all the way down to D, which is like don't want, worst, throw it in the trash, could leave it, never see this movie, it sucks, whatever.
Yeah.
We have been precedented to have a double S tier and occasionally an F tier. So you could, if you really, really feel that strongly about something, could go above or below. But this really is yours. You can rank them however you want. And I know the images are a little bit small, so I will read the title of the films to you and pair the images with them as we go along. Does that sound good?
Okay. Yeah. For sure.
Okay. First up, we've got Cool Hand Luke. That's this image here.
Okay.
Where are you ranking this banjo moment?
Wow. I don't remember that.
Okay.
Gotta watch that movie again. Let's put it down. I mean, I love that. I remember loving that movie, so it's probably pretty good.
Okay.
Can put it like middle or mid to bottom.
Like a B tier or a C tier?
B or C. Go for C for now. Yeah.
C for now. Okay. We can also change these over time too if you're like, okay, you can adjust it as we go. So this isn't the final moment necessarily.
All right. Nice. Yeah.
How about A Mighty Wind with this giant banjo and banjo performance on stage?
All right, let's put that in. There could be more than one.
Yes.
Like put that in C for now. Let's try that in C.
Above or below Cold Hand Luke?
Oh, I don't know. Oh.
Like, do you want it in front or?
Oh, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter? Okay. Cool. How about the Muppet Movie? Kermit the Frog.
Oh man.
Holding that wonderful, beautiful banjo.
Sure. Yeah. Put that in a B.
A B tier? Okay.
Sure.
Love it. How about Bonnie and Clyde? Famous dueling banjos are in this.
No, the Foggy Mountain that was like Scrubs, right?
Yeah.
Sure, we could put that in a B, I guess. Sure.
Okay, do you think it's better or worse than Kermit the Frog?
Oh man, it's different, man. It's a little bit worse.
Okay, a little worse. All right. Next up we have Deliverance, which is like it's the top of everyone's banjo list. Yeah.
Yeah. We can put that in a C or D.
C or D? Okay,
Yeah.
what do you think?
Yeah, I can't mess
Straight
with that.
to
Really.
D.
Lindsay says,
right, yeah.
Lindsay, wait,
Right.
don't
Yeah,
influence Eli.
No, she's
You like
she's
it, D?
right. We can have it on. Yeah, D's fine.
We don't talk about that movie in old time.
Wait, I need to know I'm not part of this folk group. I need to. What's the beef with Deliverance? I haven't seen it in a long time. Bad for banjos. It just sucks. Okay.
I mean, nothing on the guys that recorded that music. They were very good, but that movie's like whatever.
Oh my gosh. What about Harold and Maude?
There was banjo music in Harold and Maude.
Yeah. Okay. I don't want to
I haven't seen that movie in probably 20 years.
That's okay. Yeah, there's Harold picks up the banjo on behalf of Maude, and that becomes like his instrument by the end, and he only plays Cat Stevens on it, but he plays like Cat Stevens on a banjo.
Okay, that could go in like B or C, I guess. C is fine.
Okay.
Since I haven't seen it, since I don't remember it.
All right. Do you think
B is fine too? Either way.
All right. If it's gonna be either, I'll put it top of C. Does that sound good? Okay. Cool.
Boom.
What about Fantastic Mr. Fox?
Haven't seen that. Sorry.
Okay, we can leave it off if you want to. If you're like for sure haven't seen it, we can leave it off.
Yeah, better leave it off. I haven't seen it. I gotta see that.
It's a good one. There is a character named I think his name's just Petey. It might be something Petey, but he plays in a banjo in a campfire type situation.
Cool.
We've got up next. Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yeah, I love that movie. You could put that in A.
In A, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Called it.
Called it. I love that movie too. And Dom and I were on an episode of the Movie Club podcast, which is hosted by one of our like avid chatters, T Papas 56. And we talked about Oh Brother Where Art Thou, and we love that so much. Yeah, hot damn, it's a soggy bottom, boy, as Dom says.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do not seek the treasure.
I say that way too often, and people are very confused. Yeah, do not seek the treasure. Then
We thought you was a toad.
Yes,
I love that movie.
It's really good. And then the last thing we got to rank here on our list is the Banjo Guy in Zombieland.
I haven't seen that.
You haven't seen this one either?
No.
It's oh my gosh, why am I forgetting this actor's name? Somebody in the audience remind me. It's like a super famous actor. He's holding a banjo in this picture, and they're playing banjo against a bunch of zombies, which is pretty cool.
Wow.
Is it
Oh, go ahead.
What's his name? Look it up. Benton's Dream. Woody Harrelson. Thank you. Oh my god, it was like crushing me. I was like, what's this? It's like, what is this actor's name? Yeah, it's Woody Harrelson playing the banjo.
I'm trying to figure out, man, what was the movie that Roscoe Holcomb had a song in back in the 60s? That kind of like psychedelic counterculture movie. I can't think of I'm just blanking on the name now.
Lindsay, look it up. Let's see what we got. Yeah, what I want to ask you, what banjo movies we've left off this list that you would like on here.
I don't know. I mean, like feature films that have banjo music in them. Wow.
Yeah,
it's far between.
Yeah, it's more like like if there was a banjo moment. We were trying to think. There was a list of a bunch of movies on IMDb, but some of them were.
There's one from 1970 called Zabriskie Point. That's what I was.
Thanks. Yeah, that's what I was. Yeah, that's what I was. Thanks. Sorry, I couldn't remember that. Yeah. That's a good banjo moment in a movie. That movie's pretty trippy.
Yeah. Where would you rank that on this list?
Oh, go ahead and put it right there in A.
You put an A? Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Dom says Woody Harrelson's character's name is Tallahassee. That's awesome. All right. Well, I guess this is our official tier list of Eli's rankings.
Zabriskie Point.
Yeah.
Get that in there.
Yeah, Zabriskie Point. So we'll say on a scale of the unrepresented Zabriskie Point all the way down to Deliverance, a straight to D moment. This is the official tier list for top banjo moments in film.
Who was Oh wait, I might have one.
Oh yeah, another one.
Hold on. I'm like looking at my phone right now because I'm trying to remember it. Man, Hoyt Ming was in a movie. This isn't banjo. Sorry, it's just old time music. But the old fiddler Hoyt Ming he's featured in a square dance scene in like some like kind of B movie from like the 70s. What was it? It'll come back to me. I don't know.
Yes, E. Robinson 666. Bonnie and Clyde is on his list, and it made bottom of B tier. Yeah, awesome. Hey Eli, thank you so much for being an awesome guest and answering all of our questions. I'm just gonna switch back over to
lots of fun.
Our cameras. Yeah, thank you. Academy, you know what to do. GG's, ladders if you have them. Good games for Eli Smith, who's been a wonderful guest, and you were just so great for being on the show, and I'm glad that we finally got to reschedule and we could make it work for us, because this has been really enlightening and cool, and like showed us a whole other side of both traditional music culture and also video games, and just what it's like working in all these different little networks. It's really awesome.
Yeah, thank you. This has been really fun, and we tried to do this when I was like traveling in Mexico, and there wasn't enough internet, so I'm glad we could make it work.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of good questions. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Object Quotes have had meaning to me on many levels. Making quotes helped me to get a sense of my own space, sense of finding my way, sense of really working my way out of the labyrinth.